People across the world came out in support of Venezuela on Saturday, calling for an end to the economic blockade against the nation. Guatemala heads to the polls on Sunday for the presidential runoff as interest among citizens remains low. And residents of Indian-occupied Kashmir call for communication services to be restored and the curfew to be lifted. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Polo. Across the world, people are showing support for Venezuela's right to sovereignty and self-determination under the slogan, "No More Trump." In the Venezuelan capital, thousands of government supporters marched to reject the criminal economic blockade the U.S. recently imposed on the South American country. This is part of day-long events held across Venezuela and the world. The latest blockade has seen the U.S. freeze all Venezuelan assets within U.S. territory and prohibit both its citizens and entities from cooperating with the Bolivarian government. In Africa, citizens also rallied in support of the Bolivarian nation. Nationals and social organizations in Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Equatorial Guinea and Angola marched while chanting "Chavez lives." They also called for an end to the criminal and illegal blockade that is putting in danger the lives of Venezuelan citizens. Many also stood in solidarity with Venezuela in Europe. In cities like Rome, Berlin and Vigo in Spain, activists sent their best wishes to the Venezuelan people. They also called on their own governments to break with imperialist policies like those of the United States and respect the legitimate Bolivarian government. And across the Americas, people also showed up in support of the South American country. In Haiti, Antigua and Barbuda, Brazil, the Dominican Republic and Bolivia, citizens called on the international community to stop meddling in Venezuela's affairs. President Nicolas Maduro joined the thousands in Caracas in condemnation of the U.S. blockade. During his speech, the president highlighted what's at stake for the Bolivarian nation.
This is a battle for our right to live and exist, for independence and sovereignty, for the respect of international right. The imperialist government of Donald Trump continues to constantly violate the norms and values of international law.
President Maduro also referred to the actions of the United States as another attempt at imposing a global dictatorship.
They take coercive, illegal measures by using the economic power of the dollar. They use the power of U.S. banks and try to impose a global dictatorship, the dollar dictatorship. But Venezuela is an issue for them, because we speak for ourselves, because we stand up, because we tell the truth with no filters.
Guatemala is headed to the polls this Sunday for runoff presidential elections to be contested between right-wing Alejandro Giammattei and center-left Sandra Torres. On Friday, both candidates ended their campaigns with separate rallies. So far, there has not been a clear favorite, as different polls placed both candidates in the lead. Meanwhile, experts agree there will likely be a very low voter turnout as citizens have expressed disillusionment with both candidates and their capacity to solve the issues plaguing the Central American nation.
I have no doubt. I have the character and firmness to fight corruption, criminals and extortionists, organized crime and drug trafficking. I am going to bring order to the country.
I will spend the next 4 years working to move my beautiful country forward. We will solve many of our issues together. As such, I want to close my campaign by thanking God for letting me be here today. Thank you, God, and thanks to all of you.
Now, it's just 2 days before the runoff elections. Members of Guatemala's Mayan community in the department of Hutenango held a protest at the La Mesilla border crossing to condemn the recent agreement with the U.S. for Guatemala to become a safe third country. Let's find out more.
The organized Mayan people of Saculeu brought to a halt all activities at the La Mesilla border crossing in rejection of anti-immigrant policies boosted by outgoing President Jimmy Morales.
We don't agree with what the government has been doing, delivering our land to other countries, allowing for more invasion of our countries.
The Mayan people soundly condemned the agreement signed in the White House on July 26, which makes Guatemala a safe third country.
This is shameful for every Guatemalan, but especially the government, because I don't know who he thinks he is to turn us into a safe third country to protect U.S. interests.
We don't have medication, we lack doctors, nurses. How are we going to be a safe third country?
During the International Day of Indigenous People, the Mayan community demanded that borders stay open to strengthen the bonds of fraternity and to clarify that they are not against migrants.
We know migrants are fleeing various humanitarian crises. They are fleeing their countries due to so many violations against their rights.
Protesters closed down the border crossing as a symbolic act to show their support for free and safe migration.
This border has only served the outraged migrants that come here, that go up and down this border every day. This is the international bridge of everything and everyone.
With Guatemala about to elect a new president, indigenous communities are demanding that whoever is elected carry out a thorough audit of the Safe Third Country Agreement.
In Honduras, thousands of protesters braved the heat armed with banners and flags to call for the resignation of President Juan Orlando Hernandez. Demonstrators say the president must step down due to his alleged link to drug trafficking. During the protest, former President Manuel Zelaya also called on U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi to go home, since she intends to support the current regime during her expected visit to Honduras this Saturday with 14 members of Congress.
Mrs. Pelosi, if you come to support the dictatorship, the corruption, the drug trafficking, the looting and the murder, Mrs. Pelosi, go home. Go home, Mrs. Pelosi.
In other news, thousands in Bolivia took to the streets on Friday to protest against gender-based violence. They were joined by President Evo Morales, who recently proposed that femicides are considered crimes against humanity. Protesters held placards reading "Violence is not natural" and chanted "No more violence against women." Also present at the march was the President of the United Nations General Assembly, Maria Fernanda Espinosa. Bolivia holds the highest rate of femicides in South America, as on average a woman is killed every 3 days due to gender violence.
The violence must stop, and that's only going to end through awareness. We must end these relationships of power. We must end violence. We must get into our heads that women are nobody's private property. We are people, the same as men, and we demand that all of society and legal authorities abide by the law, because there are many dead women, but few killers of women, few murderers in jail. We really need justice to be done, but we also need to commit ourselves as a society, as social organizations, to end the violence.
Reporting restrictions have come into force in Argentina ahead of Sunday's compulsory primary elections known as Paso. The ballot will show how likely the Frente de Todos of former President Cristina Fernandez is to replace the right-wing government of Mauricio Macri in October's general elections.
The Frente de Todos closed its campaign for the Paso before a big crowd in the city of Rosario. Its presidential candidate, Alberto Fernandez, spoke alongside his running mate, the former president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, and a number of Peronist governors.
I guarantee that a very different Argentina is coming, not like what we have today, where Argentinians are forced to live because consumption, wages and pensions are falling. When we stop consuming, production falls, factories close, unemployment rises. If I don't keep my word, I call on you to take to the streets to remind me that I am failing.
The former president and current senator took to the stage to say that all the Peronists and other forces in this front have put aside their differences, because they understand the need for unity to defeat the current neoliberal government.
The last straw for me was when we went back into debt with the IMF. I want Argentinians, women and men, to be happy again. We need to come together to leave behind the awful things we have been living through, the policies implemented by Macri. I never imagined I would see what we are seeing today, with entire families forced to live on the streets.
The center-right alliance, Together for Change, closed its campaign in Córdoba. The main speaker was President Mauricio Macri, who's seeking re-election. In the midst of an economic crisis, and with the poll figures against him, his closing speech lasted just 10 minutes.
We can confirm that we are moving forward, and we can tell the world that the Argentina we dream of lies ahead, none in the past, and we will achieve it. On Sunday, we will decide if everything we have done in the last 3.5 years will bear fruit. In the Argentina we all dream of, your votes will decide. And that is why it is so important that all of us turn out to vote.
Several alliances are competing for the post of president, as well as for members of Congress, governors, and other provincial and municipal posts. In order to stand in the elections in October, they need to win at least 1.5% in these primaries on Sunday.
We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll tell you how an explosion managed to kill 61 people in Tanzania. Join us again in a minute. Welcome back. Residents in Indian-occupied Kashmir have called on the Indian government to restore communication and lift a curfew imposed on the region since Monday. Huge numbers of troops have remained on the streets since India's move to remove the semi-autonomous status of occupied Jammu and Kashmir. On Friday, about 8,000 people gathered for a protest on the edge of Srinagar that was broken up by security forces with tear gas and shotgun pellets.
If they just wanted to remove Article 370, then why did they have to do so much drama? And why did they have to fully lock us down? If this step was for our benefit, if they sit in Delhi and claim that we Kashmiris are happy about this, then why should they have such a lockdown here?
No region in the whole world is without any net, without any telecommunication, but this is the single place, single region in the whole universe, not in the whole world, which is cut from all these. There is no landline facility. Our children, our brothers, our sisters, our daughters are standing outside this state. We don't know in what position they are.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has said that with help of China, it will take up India's unilateral actions to the UN Security Council. The Pakistani foreign minister said they may approach the UN Human Rights Commission over what he says is genocide of the Kashmiri people. He also added that India's moves have increased the threat to regional peace.
I shared with the government of China that Pakistan has decided to take this issue to the United Nations Security Council, and we need China's support over there. When a demographic change is made through force and the majority is converted into a minority, it's called genocide, and you're moving toward genocide.
Security Council.
At least 61 people have been killed in Tanzania after a fuel tanker exploded in a collision. According to officials, more than 70 people suffered serious burns. Reports say people were trying to siphon petrol from the vehicle, which had overturned on a major road when the blast happened. Police also said most of those dead are motorbike and taxi drivers.
As soon as the accident took place, most of the people started running toward where the fuel tanker was and started stealing the fuel. Suddenly, the tanker exploded with big flames, and I was some distance away from the tanker, but still was affected by the big flame from the tanker.
We call upon citizens to make sure they stay as far away from the area to avoid more civilian casualties. The police force right now has started special operations. Whoever did succeed to steal the fuel and keep it under their house will kindly ask them to remove the fuel from their houses.
2 United Nations staff have been killed in a car bomb explosion in Libya's eastern city of Benghazi. 10 others were wounded, including children. The blast went off in front of a shopping mall and bank. The UN is in the area trying to broker a truce in the capital, Tripoli, where the Libyan National Army launched an attack in April. There has been no immediate claim of responsibility for the blast. Kenya's president is urging the Caribbean community to support his country's bid for the United Nations Security Council's non-permanent seat for the period 2021 to 2022. Uhuru Kenyatta made the appeal as he pitched for closer cooperation between African, Caribbean and Pacific countries to spur development and economic growth. Kenyatta says his country hopes to lend its voice to the UN Security Council's role in maintaining global peace. He also assured that Kenya will continue to fight for peace, security and conflict management in the Horn of Africa region and other parts of the world.
We therefore seek and look forward to the support of our brothers and sisters in the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States for our bid. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya is host to the only United Nations office in Africa, and the UN Secretary General recommended the office in Nairobi as one of the 4 proposed centers to host a global service delivery model. This was after Kenya met the threshold on availability of space, qualified personnel, employee safety, location, and affordable costs. Indeed, it is my hope that during the deliberation on this matter, on the 5th Committee of the United Nations General Assembly, CARICOM countries will support Kenya.
Meanwhile, Kenya has signed bilateral agreements with Barbados to create more economic opportunities for the people of the 2 nations. The pacts include the establishment of a joint commission for cooperation and another one on political consultations. The 2 countries will work together in several areas, including renewable energy, tourism, trade, health and education. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta and Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley witnessed the signing after they led bilateral talks in Barbados. Trinidad and Tobago Public Administration Minister Marlene MacDonald is still in police custody on corruption inquiries. MacDonald and her partner Michael Carew were kept at the St. Joseph Police Station overnight after being arrested on Thursday. They are currently being interrogated at the Professional Standards Bureau. A 3rd person is also said to be in custody. The minister is being questioned on matters involving misappropriation of state funds from a 6-year case.
A very good evening to you.
Guyana's President David Granger is dismissing claims that foreigners can impact the country's general elections. Granger made the comment in response to concerns raised by the opposition.
We know of the influx of Cubans, but suddenly there seems to be a great concern about the influx of Haitians, but my understanding is that they are not going to be involved in influencing the elections in Guyana, nor with the Cubans, nor with the Venezuelans.
After the break, 95 die in Indian floods. Don't go away. Welcome back. Disgraced U.S. financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his prison cell while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Epstein's body was found in an apparent suicide at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City, where he was held without bail. The 66-year-old man was arrested on July 6th on charges of trafficking dozens of underage girls as young as 14 from 2002 to 2005. He pleaded not guilty. Last month, he was found unconscious in his cell with marks to the neck. That matter was being investigated as a possible suicide or assault. However, at the time of his death, he had been taken off suicide watch. In the United States, the El Paso, Texas shooter has reportedly confessed to police that he had specifically targeted Mexicans in last weekend's attack, which left 22 dead. Police say that 21-year-old Patrick Crucia said, "I'm the shooter," as he emerged from a vehicle that was stopped at an intersection shortly after the incident. El Paso is a city just off Mexico's border with a large Mexican population. Crucia posted a manifesto on social media that railed against an influx of Mexicans and other Latin American people into the U.S. shortly before the attack. Crucia has been charged with capital murder and is being held without bond. In India, the death toll from floods has risen to 95, while thousands have been evacuated from their homes due to heavy rains and landslides. More than 40 of those killed reside in the southwestern state of Kerala. The flooding and landslides caused by the monsoon seasonal rains have left some areas cut off. Officials have since called on those affected to try to seek shelter on higher ground. Karnataka and Maharashtra are among the states badly affected.
We have evacuated around 2,000 people, but right now also there is a possibility of 2,000 people being trapped, and the water level is increasing every day. There is panic among the people. They are facing a lot of difficulties.
At least 18 people were killed in Yongjia City after Typhoon Lakima struck China's south coast this Saturday. 14 people were also reported missing as the typhoon knocked down houses and trees. More than 200 homes collapsed while over 3,000 were damaged. Homes were also flooded as a river which was blocked by a landslide rose 10 meters and then broke through the debris. More than 1 million people were evacuated before the storm struck, while more than 3,000 flights in several cities were cancelled. Climate change continues to affect our planet, especially Europe during the months of summer. The continent is literally feeling the heat as it records some all-time high temperatures.
Forests are the most affected during this season as they face record-crushing temperatures, a lack of rain and global warming. This year, the heat wave has destroyed more than 53,000 hectares. That's almost 5 times more than in 2018.
The forests are in danger, now more than ever, due to several reasons, mainly due to the record in high temperatures since we've started recording them. We reach new records every summer, and that's not good for the forest.
In southern Europe, the soil dries up every summer, but this year the temperatures continue to rise, caused mainly by an unsustainable agriculture, which environmental groups want to change.
This administration has to be smarter, all of them, the European Union, the state government, the local government, but they are looking away, and climate change is already here, and we need to act now.
Experts warn of a climate emergency and its dire consequences, such as large fires in places which were rainy in the past.
The rise of temperature in Europe is not only causing fires in unexpected places like Russia, but also causing droughts in areas where there is usually rain.
The rising temperatures affect the lives of all living beings and have left dozens of dead across the continent this summer.
In this heat, we have issues with older people, and they are in risk due to the heat waves. They are really dangerous. Temperatures can reach easily 40 degrees Celsius.
Europe has experienced one of its worst heat waves, reaching record-breaking temperatures of over 40 degrees, and that heat was felt in countries such as France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium.
That brings us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you so much for watching.